Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. Here with Tim, of course, just to introduce what we're going to be doing on a weekly basis here. We're going to be doing videos talking about could be Tim's background, Haven, of course, the company, the industry, hot things we're seeing. It could be this recent Oregon decriminalization or other things that are happening in the space. So just to give people an idea, if you want to see a certain topic, make sure you leave a comment below, but also any feedback, any questions for Tim, we'll try and push those in videos as well. Tim, how are you?
Great, Jason. Good to see you this morning.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Well, it's been a crazy time. Obviously, elections. You got a new vaccine in the market, and then of course last week you had Oregon kind of pushing this decriminalization stuff. So a lot of good stuff it seems like for Haven. But this video, as kind of introduced, we're just going to learn about you, your background, and look. Let's kick it off. Tell me. Let's start with where it began. Let's start with school. Where do you go to school? Kind of what was your initial interest?
I grew up near London, Ontario. Was born in a little village called Wingham, which was the smallest community in North America with its own TV station. So it was on Rocking Horse Ranch as a little kid there. But went to school in London, went to University of Western Ontario, got an economics degree. Was interested in business, went to work for a couple of years and came back and did my MBA at what's now the Richard Ivey School of Business. Graduated from there in 1983. Went into consumer packaged goods where I spent most of my career. Was working at Beecham, which now is part of GlaxoSmithKline. So worked in that space, changed companies early in my career to follow one of my coworkers who offered me a promotion. I was a young, ambitious person, and a promotion sounded great in my 20s. So I went to a company called Schulten, which was eventually acquired by Clorox. So I spent 18 years at Clorox, got transferred to New Jersey into a big role there, and then got transferred to Florida, and then came back to Canada in 1990 and spent the rest of my time from 1990 on in Canada. So ultimately was president of Clorox Canada, went through a number of acquisitions there, built that business from the ground up. When I came to Canada in 1990, Clorox had no infrastructure. There were a few brands that were licensed, but I got the licenses back. So we built from no employees to about 300 employees, 4 or 5 manufacturing facilities, and about $250 million in revenue over the course of 8 years, which is an exciting exercise to go through. I left Clorox and made a couple other moves. I spent 7 years running the North American Brita business, both the food service and consumer business. I was chief operating officer at Cinex, which is one of the largest consumer electronics distributors. And then ultimately I made a move into the cannabis space based on personal motivation. So, I've got 5 sons. My oldest son is 35. My youngest son is 24. I've dealt with mental health issues with my boys over the last 3 decades. 2 of my sons have anxiety disorder. My youngest son is an Asperger's kid. My middle son was disabled by a drunk driver 6 years ago and spent 4 years not working and became an opioid addict. Ultimately, cannabis saved his life, and that became my motivation for getting into the cannabis space. And now, I take a look at the promise that psilocybin and other psychedelics offer for mental health issues, and that became my motivation to get into this space. I lived with a suicidal 14-year-old, okay? So it becomes a very intimate thing for me to think that we can offer hope. We as an industry can offer hope to people that are wrestling with terrible afflictions. So that's my background in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, you condensed that extremely well. Holy, going from really consumer packaged goods, you add in Clorox, you throw in cannabis, all these other things, and your passion behind that. I had one of my questions written down was, how do you go from being at such a level in a company as an executive running a you said doing $250 million to then getting into cannabis, and you're fueled by your kids. I think that's awesome.